Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the weekly armchair. Devil's Advocate, Thursday night Devil's Advocate. I hope you're all well. Please get your comments in, get liking, get subscribing. I'm waiting for Phil, but of course I've got a wonderful man beside me here, Stu. How you doing, first of all, buddy? You good?
Yeah, I'm all right, actually. I've had a pretty good week. I think the club's had a great week. I noticed that a lot of fans are claiming the Ajax Eredivisie as our 21st title, as our incumbent manager won it. So a lot of fans are linking the two together, which is quite nice, actually. It allows us to have some kind of excitement, doesn't it? And when you look at the Youth Cup, unfortunately, I couldn't get to Old Trafford last night because I was playing myself, so I haven't seen the game. But I mean, I think we've won it a record 11 times now. I think with something across 30 odd thousand, more than the highest ever record attendance for a Youth Cup match, which was phenomenal. I just couldn't believe
Absolutely
it.
mental, and you know what?
It is.
That's obviously testament to the fans. It was really sort of hyped up, and as much as we get frustrated with the United's admin and all this, that, and the other, it was good that they did that. It put something electric and great about this game, and obviously that
Yeah.
would have played very much into the kids' hands. That was something they really wanted to embrace. And
Yeah.
of course, you see that as well with the reactions. Garnacho, when he took his penalty and did his Cristiano
The old
Ronaldo
feud
impression
yeah.
and took his. Do you know what I mean? None of that would happen without the fans, and I think that was a really lovely thing for them, and obviously that will really instill some sort of confidence in them. So carry on. Sorry, buddy.
I think what was impressive from everything that I've heard about the match was that they weren't overawed. And a good professional footballer shouldn't be overawed by the crowd. They get in there initially; it's a little bit of a shock when they come out to train, and there's 20,000, thousand fans in the stadium. When they then come out and they're lining up in the tunnel, the nerves are going, the energy is rushing through you. They walk out onto the hallowed turf, and then of course the 60, what was it, 64, 65,000 people there last night, wasn't it? Something,
66, I think it was in
yeah,
attendance,
something
something like that.
ridiculous. And the initial atmosphere would have absolutely petrified them. But it's like everything. Once you get that first touch of the ball and you don't give it away and you lay it off 2 or 3 yards and it just calms you down. And then before you know it, you've got into your rhythm. And that's how it should be. So one of the things, the pleasing things for me, and I would imagine old Warren Joyce took the same thing away from Forest, was that these lads have matured and matured very, very quickly, and have now had a taste of what it's like to play in front of a huge, huge crowd, rather than the probably 500 or 600 that they're playing at Carrington and all other training grounds up and down the country. So we appear to have one or two outstanding young players, and I think unfortunately Garnacho will take all of the headlines due to his minor first team appearances. But there's a lot of stuff going on around about his granddad was in the stadium last night.
I saw that video
Yeah,
actually. That was
yeah,
really nice, actually, wasn't it?
celebrating his penalty, and I think Garnacho has been quite vocal about the influence that Cristiano Ronaldo has had on him as an individual, amongst other players, and it was good to see him replicate the Sioux. So it was also good to see Harry Maguire there last night. There was a couple of first team players that turned up, and so they should have done, particularly Harry Maguire. I think him coming out the equation has been good for him the last few games. So it'll be interesting. Be interesting to see what Ralph does. Crikey, we don't play till the 22nd, do we? We don't play.
I know. I got it wrong actually. I was supposed to be doing a reaction, and I thought it was this weekend, but I'm away
No, it's
next
next
weekend, so
weekend.
I'm not doing
Yeah,
one. But yeah, so
yeah.
bit of a mishap for me. But to be honest, yeah, I've been so out of touch with United, obviously with a poor run of form and results recently. It just lost me there a bit. But
Oh, I don't blame you,
yeah,
mate.
great result. Rachel in the comments, thanks for
Right,
joining us,
right.
Rachel. Really nice to see you. I haven't spoken to you for a little while. I'll have to catch up at some point, but great to have you here. Everybody else in the comments, yeah, get your comments in. We want to talk about those. We want to know what your thoughts are on, and obviously last night. Yes, it's the Youth Cup. Yes, it's obviously about the youngsters and in hindsight is not about the main team. We know this, but obviously it's a great thing and a nice buzz to have around the club, and that's certainly what we need. So yeah, just moving on then, really, Stu. I kind of touched upon it then. What do you think this means for the club? And as I said, it is in the grand scheme of things, and this is no detriment on them. It's wonderful. I'm pleased for them. They need to sort of experience success and trophies and this, that, and the other, because it will propel them. But what does this mean for the club? Now, we are the record holders 11 times now. Hadn't won it, though, since 2010-11, back when Pogba was first with us, okay? And there have obviously been lots of criticisms about the youth system over the years, which has got better when Nicky Butt was put in place and they were getting the scouting network involved, getting some really good players in. But obviously they've kicked on now. They've got the Youth Cup from last night, which is fantastic. But what does that mean for the club? Do you think that will reverberate around the club and hopefully instill some sort of buzz for the senior players?
Well, I think it's embarrassed the senior players. I know that much.
Yeah,
I
well, hopefully
mean,
that too. Yeah,
if I was a senior player in that dressing room and I was watching last night, I'd be taking a long, hard look at myself and look at the lack of performance that I've done for most of the season. So I think first and foremost, it embarrassed a lot of senior players. Secondly, funnily enough, it'll be up to the individual players themselves which will determine their own path and how they make a progression in the game, whether they make it at Manchester United or make it at other clubs. And I think that when you look at certain players who have potentially made it to the first team at Old Trafford, Brandon Williams being one, they've fallen away. They haven't allowed it. They haven't made it stick. And so some of these players, whoever they may be, they've got to start looking today on where they want to be tomorrow and how they want to push themselves and adapt themselves with the right training, with the right approach, the right mentality to make a first team appearance, whether it be for Manchester United or on loan somewhere else. So I would imagine last night, once all the rose water or whatever it was, because I can't imagine it was champagne, had been swallowed.
you never know.
I would hope that there was a talking to the lads and saying, look, let's have a conversation what this means moving forward. What it means for your own careers, how you feel it's going to help you in the short term as well as the long term. And these lads have got to make sure that they still apply everything they've been taught this season through the off season. So they train hard through the off season. They don't get they don't get dragged from pillar to post in terms of holidays with their mates, looking after their mates. They've got to make a decision now, and it's quite critical to where they want to be on how they're going to sort it out, really. And for me, if I was one of them, I would be going away, but I'd be going away with my parents rather than my friends, and I would try and shut away all the hysteria and the euphoria that's going on, because I'd be determined to make it next season. And the only way you're going to do that, and you've seen what's happened with certain players over the years who have done exceptionally well at youth level, but never been able to make that step into senior football on a regular basis. And I'm hoping that these lads, Garnacho in particular, goes back to Argentina if that's where he's going to go, and he leads, for the foreseeable future for 2 or 3 weeks, a very sheltered existence, and then comes back and starts, because the hard work starts all over again. These guys have got to understand now that a completely new entity is about to walk through the Carrington training ground doors. Probably, I would say, at the end of May. I would think he's going to want to get in early.
Yeah.
I
By
know
all accounts, actually, sorry to interject there, Stu. I did see the other day that after the season is over, which is pretty much done for Ajax now, he is looking to walk in at the end of the month to have his obviously his input. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done, and he wants to get in early. And I think it's going to be as also on top of that getting in the players early for pre-season to give them a couple of
Absolutely.
weeks to get them really accustomed to his style of play.
Well, we start early anyway, don't we, because of the World Cup? So I think we
Yeah.
start at least a week early. He's going to be going on tour the end of June, stroke July. So he's got to be in. And I just hope he gives a couple of these kids a chance. I mean, most of them will obviously migrate up to the under 23s. You know my thoughts on under 23 football. It doesn't really educate you enough, for the rigors of professional football. These lads are still growing. I'd be getting in the gym if I was them, and me and Cal have had disagreements on this in the past. But these are the types of things that I would be doing because I would want him to be making sure that I do everything possible to give me a chance of making it through to the first team at some point next season.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. You know, we do forget as well for these young players, a very, very small amount, a very small percentage actually get the even to make a debut, but obviously to actually get into the first team and really
Yeah,
get hold of a position. So this is just, this is the brink for them, and obviously I hope that they can. Embrace that success, bring it with them, and really push for first team football. That's what it's all about.
totally agree.
Tony, it's been a long time since I've spoken to you, buddy.
No,
Evening
no.
all. Hope we're all well. I hope you're very well yourself, mate. Good to see you in the comments. Get your questions in, get more comments in, and we will go through those. We just covered, obviously, the Youth Cup triumph last night. Obviously, huge, resounding success, and well done to the boys as well. Really, really great to see. And just to quickly touch upon Garnacho.
Mm.
Obviously, has been in the squad, in the first team squad now for a number of weeks. Hasn't seen probably enough minutes yet, as much as we'd like at least. But was, as you say, will get the plaudits. Not necessarily the only player that played well last night, but certainly will be talked about. But what do you make of him so far from what you've seen?
I like him. He's obviously got an eye for goal. He's obviously, a good, solid, player. I think he's like everything. He's gonna have to add a bit of weight to his game. He's gonna have to add a bit of guile to his game. I remember when he came on against Chelsea, the first thing Rudiger did was tap him on the shoulder, tap him on the head. Welcome to the game, mate. Every time you're looking around, you're gonna see 6'3" me. And he didn't really wasn't allowed to get into the game. Didn't really do much.
No.
He's got to understand that this is what's in store for him. When you have a big reputation at youth level, then players are looking, they're looking for it. This is the problem with modern day football. I'm afraid modern day fans, what we tend to do is we look at a player, look at his capabilities, and think, "Wow, he's going to be one for the future." Got to see Garnacho, we've got to see Medjbury. The last 6 weeks of the season, it's been all the comments have been about let's give the kids a chance, etc., etc., etc. Sometimes it just isn't the right time. This season was never the right time to blood them properly. If I was Garnacho, like I said, I'd be going away. I'd be, keeping a low profile. I'd be keeping myself exceptionally fit, and I would come back even hungrier than what I was this season. And I'd be looking to, get training with the first team squad at some point. I'd be knocking on the manager's door. Can I go on tour? I would imagine that Ten Hag's going to take a bigger squad on tour than what he would normally, so that you can see different types of players. And so that's how he's got to map his path. There has been so many players that have, had the world at their feet, for the better phrase, which I don't like, as you well know, and have completely just gone off the radar. The worst thing a footballer can do is believe his own press. It's the worst thing a footballer can do.
Yeah, absolutely spot
I'm
on. I'm
not
just
saying
going
this
to,
kid will, but that is the worst thing a footballer can do.
yeah, absolutely spot on, mate. Great points, well made. Tony in the comments here, and I'll obviously direct this at you, Stu. Um, is it just me, or does Garnacho remind you of a young Ryan Giggs?
Yeah, Ganacho's got to remind you of Ganacho. This is one of the
Good point.
issues.
Yeah.
This is one of the issues that we have, Tony. I'm afraid, and it's not you, mate, because you're a very sensible person when it comes to talking football. But by comparing these, I remember Giggsy back in the day when he was compared to George Best, and his comment was, "If I was half as good as George Best, I'd be pleased." Well, his comment should have been, "I'm Ryan Giggs. That's who I am. Judge me at the end of my career. Judge me in 5 years' time. I'm Ryan Giggs." And I just hope that Garnacho judges himself, believes in himself, and doesn't get carried away with the Giggs hype or the Lee Sharp hype. Not that there will be a Lee Sharp hype, bless him. The Jesper
Nearly, man.
Blomqvist. Yeah, Jesper Blomqvist, his hype. That type of player. He's got to believe in himself, and he's got to develop his own game. The other thing that young players fall foul of a lot is if they are compared to players, they tend to try and play like the player they're being compared to. And you can't do that. You've got to keep your head on the, feet on the ground, head out the clouds, and just play your own game. So, Tony, I'd like him to remind us all of his own, as being Garnacho.
Yeah, absolutely. Good points well made there, matey. And absolutely right. Keen in the comments on my break now. He's working, bless him. That's why I'm covering for him tonight. Working until 10.
Good.
But here he is, absolute baller in the comments. Very well,
Yes.
thank you, mate. I hope you're I hope it's going well for you, and enjoy the rest of your shift, buddy. Moving on now, obviously, as I said, last thoughts on that. Really proud of the youngsters.
Yeah.
Obviously, I followed them a lot more in the last couple of seasons for sure, and obviously you know Reece very well. He knows them inside and out, and it's really great for them to get that trophy. So brilliant stuff. Hopefully they can move on, and some of those might be in the first team over the next couple of seasons. You never know. So moving on to Glazer ownership very briefly,
Our
and that
favourite
was in
subject.
our favourite subject. Absolutely right. Now, it's very, very difficult not to get carried away with the rumours that have been going on over the last few days about Jim Ratcliffe. Now, Jim Ratcliffe is a multi-billionaire, one of the richest men in the UK, owns a club in France. I think it's Marseille, but I could be wrong. And is an avid Manchester United fan. And obviously, there were rumours about him coming in for Chelsea last minute. Now, I spoke to Stu before the show, and I don't believe that for 1 minute. A multi-billionaire that are shrewd, that will move heaven and earth to get what they want, don't come in with the potential to buy a club such as Chelsea last minute. And he said in a BBC interview, we came in last minute and that's absolutely our fault. I don't believe that whatsoever. With that in mind, obviously, he also moves on to say that, the presenter questioned him and said, you're an avid Manchester United player, a Manchester United fan. Why wouldn't you be in for them? And he categorically said, "Oh no, we're not interested in Manchester United. They're not for sale." Now, again, I'm not getting carried away, but I feel that you wouldn't come in late for Chelsea as a businessman. If you're a Manchester United fan that knows the situation, I feel that dangling a carrot like that, because you just say, we've seen it in interviews all the time. If you're not interested about talking about something or a particular subject, or just trying to completely kill it dead, you say, "Oh, I'm not here to talk about that." And he could have done that. Okay. Now, to me, I feel that he's dangled a carrot, and I've got some things that I do want to go through with you, Stu, in a moment,
Sure, yeah.
and obviously everyone in the comments. But what is and I appreciate nothing's happening. We don't know if it's a smokescreen, whatever. But obviously, as a United fan, we're desperate for the Glazers to go. We would love something like this to happen. But what are your initial thoughts on that potentially?
Yeah, a couple of things actually. First and foremost, I'm wondering just how much the Glazers have looked at what's happened at Chelsea and the value that Chelsea has been given in the marketplace, and the amount of money that our good old American friends are paying. And I think it's opened up a lot of fans' eyes as to what now Manchester United would be worth. You're right about one thing, though. So Jim Ratcliffe is worth something like 22 billion quid. I think he
Yeah,
is the richest man in the UK,
yeah,
assets wise. Owns a massive petrochemical firm called Ineos. Bought out Team Sky. Owns a French football club. Looked at Chelsea a couple of years ago, in fact, and it was understood that it was too expensive for Jim. So he went ahead and bought, I think it was Nantes or somewhere like that in France.
that's right. Thank you.
A billionaire like Jim Ratcliffe doesn't put any kind of last minute bid in. If you are going to
No,
throw 4.25 billion quid in front of somebody, you're not doing it on a whim. And you're certainly not doing it on the last minute, because it was made exceptionally public how the process was going to be, how long the process was going to take, and how the preferred bidders were going to be selected. So somebody like Sir Jim Ratcliffe doesn't pick up the phone to his advisors and turn around and say, "Well, look, we should have put a bid in for Chelsea 2 weeks ago, but just throw 4.25 in, will you, and just see what happens." It was never going to stick. That deal it was never going to stick. What he was trying to do, I don't know. Whether he was trying to demonstrate some flexing of muscles to other potential owners, I don't know. It's a difficult one to answer. But I think somebody with his business acumen is looking at other ways of investing. Now, look, he made it quite clear in his telephone or his interview with the BBC's Dan Rowan that he has split loyalties between Chelsea and Manchester United. He's a Manchester United fan, but can get easier access to Chelsea
yeah.
because of where
So I
his
think
business interests are.
just what Stu's talking about there. I think he was living in London and
That's
has a
right.
couple of businesses around there, and I think he was a season ticket holder for
That's exactly
Chelsea
right. Yeah.
once upon a time, and that's why the split is
Yeah.
there. But go on, sorry, Stu.
Now, whether he's testing the water and whether he's made an attempt to buy the club from Manchester United or the Glazers, or is in negotiations. There's certainly rumours that have been floating around. We may have to consider that it could still be a leverage buyout. He might have to bring in backers, which are bankers, and so any fan that suggests we may be debt free if Sir Jim Ratcliffe took over, I don't think it'd be that easy.
No,
You have to bear in mind that the Glazers only paid 790 million for Manchester United,
and
um,
leverage the rest. Yeah,
and leveraged the rest. So, and that was a very small amount of money in today's age. And you also have to bear in mind, if he's worth 22 billion, is he going to fork out? Which is undoubtedly he's going to have to look at anything between 5 and 6 billion for the Glazers to, I would imagine, turn the page. He's not just going to wipe 6 billion quid off his personal fortune to do it.
yeah.
No astute businessman
No,
would do
and
that.
this is the thing as well. And what people need to understand is it's a bit like players. Actually, you never ever buy a player outright. It is always broken up
That's
into
correct.
chunks.
Yeah,
When somebody buys a club, what the Glazers did isn't actually
for
what
you.
lots of other owners do. They don't buy it outright. Here you go. Here's 5 billion quid to buy the club. It is done in particular ways in order to buy that club, if you see what I mean. So
Yeah,
don't be under any illusion that, as Stu said, that it will take away our debt. It absolutely won't. But it means that the difference is being that we're going to have somebody that hopefully cares about the club and wants to bring that success back, as opposed to somebody or people at the moment that currently run the club that don't care.
yeah. But you also need to consider the sell-on value that Jim Ratcliffe will put on Manchester United. He's going to want to walk away with at least 3 billion quid profit. He's a businessman at the end of the day, and so it's such a big deal to do buying a club of Manchester United stature that it's not impossible, but it could take a long time unless he's been talking to the Glazers over a period of time that we as fans aren't aware of. Look, I understand
Well,
that.
I'll come to that in a moment, actually, but carry
Okay,
on.
I was just about to say I understand that there's uh, a lot of PR being drip fed, whether that's coming out of Jim Ratcliffe's PR machine, who knows? Whether it's speculation, who knows? Um, but with somebody like Jim Ratcliffe to come out publicly and have a conversation with BBC Sports and kind of go on record and say Manchester United isn't for sale, it does make me wonder as to where or if he is exploring the possibility of buying the club. Would he be a good owner? Yeah, I think he would. I think he's done wonders with Ineos, the cycling team. He's backed the America's Cup, Sir Ben Ainsley's efforts there. He's a third owner of the Mercedes Formula One team. He actually is a third owner himself, and Ineos sponsor that. So he loves this sport, and I think I think he'll be a great owner for us, and importantly, he'll be a British owner, for a British institution. So for me, it's a good thing if there is more smoke with that fire.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I've actually been trying to do a little bit of research over the last couple of days. Now these people don't necessarily have any credibility per se, but they kind of go into a little bit of detail on the finances and shareholdings and that sort of thing. So let me just read something to you here. So if the Jim Ratcliffe situation is true and he's potentially already been slowly buying up the A-class shares via hedge funds, Ariel, with now only three Glazers with any sort of voting rights, Joe at 31.6%, it would only take one to budge and the rest will follow. He continues on by saying that Ariel Investments held less than 5% of Manchester United shares before September 2021, so September last year.
Mm.
Odd time to be continuously and significantly increasing your sharehold. So with that in mind, I don't know what the exact number is, but they were on 5% before September, okay, and they are now at 20.71% stake. Now that's a huge amount of shares to be putting into a club that you have absolutely nothing to do with since last September to now. So what's that? 9 months, okay.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you see, that's really quite interesting, and I wasn't aware that that was happening. Anyone that starts to buy shares on a continuous basis in any business is looking at a longer term game, a longer term goal. Because if you're not, there's absolutely no point in holding a 22% shareholding in a company that isn't going to return the types of investment that holding 22% in Apple would be, or Tesla would be, or anything like that. Football's a unique business to be holding in. So it reminds me very much of the Glazers when they
Yeah,
started
yeah, yeah.
buying shares. They were buying in small dribs and drabs, and then suddenly they bought a 20% stake or a 5% stake. They were buying large stakes in Manchester United, which eventually then forced the voluntary buyout of all the other shares, which my understanding of the way that Manchester United is set up at the minute, you can't do that because Class B shares have the voting rights. Those are the ones that they desperately
That's right.
need, not Class A shares. Having said that, though, if you again, this is the other thing. If by holding a 22% stake in Manchester United and you can't you can't vote or you've got no real rights as a shareholder, there is an end game because you wouldn't do it because you're not wasting your money because you will see small amounts come back in, but ultimately you've got to be in a position where you are negotiating with somebody. Who that may be, I don't know. The telling point will be if any of the smaller shareholders within the Glazer family sell their Class B.
Yeah.
I would imagine that will be
Just,
the
just,
key.
just another point here. So obviously, as I said, they went from 5% to 20.71 since last September in drips and drabs. But they were paying an average of about $18 per share, but it
Mm,
currently sits at $13.40. So it's obviously gone down. But they knew that that trend was happening. Okay, so
yeah,
they're not stupid. Okay, and they knew that obviously that trend was happening, but they still continued to invest almost 15% of shares in Class A. You're absolutely right. Class B are the ones that count.
yeah.
But if that's anything to go by, and again, we're clutching at straws. I'm trying to get excited. I'm trying to think that maybe this could happen. But go on.
Look, hedge funds buy shares for an investment return. Otherwise, the investors pull their money out. That's what they do. Um, on this case, you're not going to make money on Manchester United. Not what a billionaire investor would look like. So if somebody goes to Ariel Investments and says, right, my portfolio is 500 million dollars. I'm going to entrust you with $500 million. What returns are you going to give me? He's not going to get anything off of Manchester United. You know, he'll be getting investments off something else. So it could well be that somebody has gone to Ariel Investments and said, right, we know there's going to be no money in this because the share price is only it's topped out at $20, hasn't it? I think at its peak.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know we're buying shares at 18. It's now, and we know why the shares are worth 12 to $13 anyway. Um, then it's going to be there's two things about it. First and foremost, you're going to need a huge amount of money to buy controlling stake in Manchester United at that low rate, and secondly, it's almost a stock holding. It's a stock placement position, so that somebody, whoever it is, whoever they're buying the shares on their behalf, they just know it's a stock placement position. And when you're in a stock placement position and you've built up 20%, you're going to start talking to people. You're going to start looking at who else has got a 5% chunk I can have, who's
yeah.
got a 2% chunk I can have. The other thing you might want to consider, and I'll just throw this out there, and it's
Go
it's
on. I
been
want to
playing
hear
on
it.
my mind for a while, and that is Joel Glazer came out last year talking about what he was going to do about the share ownership scheme,
Yeah,
and then they started making plays for that, if you remember, and then it
yeah,
all went very, very quiet.
yeah, yeah,
If there is somebody looking to invest in the club big and the Glazers are looking to sell, that would be the main reason for putting it quietly, because they're only offering £10 million worth of shares as a total, weren't they?
yeah. I think so.
Something along those lines. So
Yeah.
10 million quid for the amount of what Man United is worth is absolutely zip. It's nothing. It's a very small amount. So it could well be that if they are talking to interested parties, that's been pushed aside because they need to get the intricacies of the sale sorted before they talk about that. So I could be wrong on that. I probably am, but you just never know. But for me, if I was building a 20% stake in a business, then my end game is to own that business.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and this is why people are obviously getting a little bit excited. And you're absolutely right. It was about 10 million.
Where did the
Um,
rumours come from, by the way? Where did these rumours actually start from? Because they appeared
um,
on Twitter, didn't they, a couple of days ago?
they did, and I know that you have to take those things with a pinch of
Yeah,
salt. But it seems to be that more and more people are feeding into it. There have been various, and I don't know who exactly, but various Twitter accounts that have said that, we're not sure how true this is necessarily, but there is
sure.
certainly interest by Jim, and it could be very much on the cards. There was another tweet I did see the other day, just on the back of the value. I know you and I have had discussions about United's value at the moment,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Chelsea going at 3 billion. You're probably looking at upwards of 4.5 to 5 for United,
At
probably.
five, at least, I would say.
Yeah,
At least.
I
At
think you're
least
right.
five.
But the rumours are that that he potentially could have or will do lodge a bid for 4 billion. Now, I did read this tweet again the other day. Again, no necessarily reputable source, but does go into a little bit more detail. He says anyone who thinks that the Glazers won't be tempted to sell Manchester United to Jim Ratcliffe for 4 billion needs to ask one question. So, what is the current capitalization of Manchester United? It's $2.18 billion, which is equivalent to 1.77 billion pounds at the minute. Are you turning down 4 billion? So that would be the actual amount that United is worth plus the leverage of debt that we are in. So are you turning down 4 billion? I don't think so. So what do you think about that, Stu?
Yeah, but that's an easy thing to say.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Anyone can say that. But you're dealing with billionaires, and whether people like the Glazers or not, they bought Manchester United leverage for £790 million. Just let that sink in just for 1 minute. They're going to walk away with $2.5 billion. $2.5 billion pounds. So $3 billion. Whether people like them or not, you've got to admire what they've built. He's talking about market capitalization of what, £1.77 billion. What was Chelsea's? Did he do a comparison?
No, absolutely right.
Right, yeah, there you go. You see, what now? If Chelsea's won't be 1.77 million, it's probably a billion. It's probably something like a billion, maybe 950 million, something along those lines. You've got to look at what Manchester United does. Manchester United is a premium, and let's look at it in the world of cars just for a minute. Aston Martin can build a car, and they can say, what should we price that? 250,000. Why? Because we can. That's the key. And what happens is they put 300 of these 250 grand cars on the market and they're sold immediately. And they're probably making 100 grand's worth of profit on it. It's very, very easy to do. So Manchester United can say, why do we want to sell it for 5 billion? Because we can. Because it's Manchester United. So there are certain brands in the world, in the UK, that carry a premium. Unfortunately, Manchester United is one of those premiums. Where I would see the excitement and where I can see something, if Jim Ratcliffe was willing to pay 4.25 billion for Chelsea, which I think it was only something like 3 billion for the club and then another 1.25
for the rest, yeah.
Moving forward in terms of stadium, etc., then there's, a 5 billion bid isn't totally out of the equation, but he's going to have to, I think, lay 6 billion on the table. And there would be this 1 billion in terms of stadium renovation, things like that.
Nobody goes in and saying, yeah, I'm going to pay absolutely everything. Okay, you go in with a figurative value. He would have had an idea of where this figurative value would be from.
Yeah.
And it's something to start with, something that probably, would be something that would be acceptable or close to by the Glazers.
Yeah, Tony's right. Tony's statement.
Yeah, I was about to. Let me just read this out. First of all, I just want to say, Paul, great to have you in the comments. Evening, Marc and Stu, really good to have you here. Get your questions in. Obviously, with the news of Jim Ratcliffe, and again, it's all clutching at straws. It's just something to get excited about, something we wanted to discuss in a little bit more detail. What are your thoughts about that potential takeover? Do you think it might happen? Just put your thoughts into the comments. But coming to Tony's comment here, we kind of just spoke about this. You're absolutely right. The Glazers will have a magic number they want to walk away with after everything is settled. This debt the club has is transferred to any new owner, or will the Glazers have to settle it?
Absolutely right. He's absolutely right, and I think that those will be the haggling points that you do in any kind of deal. What happens with it? It's only, you have to bear in mind, it's only 500 million. Something along those lines, because it might say 521, but the settlement figure is likely to be 500 million.
Yeah.
We haven't got the awful PIK notes anymore. They paid those off because they were just costing way too much in interest. The reason
they paid those a few years ago, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. The reason that it's not an issue to have debt at Manchester United is because it's easily serviceable. It isn't a problem, and a lot of the fans get absolutely fuming about them taking money out in dividends. They're totally entitled to do that. I'm sorry. I know people won't like it. It's our money, etc., etc., etc. but it's only like you and me getting paid at the end of a month.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
all it is.
and let me tell you, if we were lucky enough to be able to afford a company or business or football club or whatever, very rarely do many people put their all of their own money. Man City are a bit of an
Well,
edge
it's an
case
anomaly,
scenario.
isn't it? It's an
It's an
anomaly,
anomaly,
that is.
exactly.
Yeah.
Every club will take their own dividends and money out of it because it's a business. It's what they have to put in to get out and obviously continue their lifestyle. Yeah,
It's just that Manchester United is such the
I
brand.
don't like it either, but it
No, we
happens.
don't. Yeah, Manchester United is such the brand. Is that's where the focal point is always that the Glazers have taken another 10 or 15 million out of the club, which is their, they own it, and it's their club to do it. And I don't like it, but we have to live with that now. So Jim Ratcliffe probably won't do that. I doubt that he will. I mean, he might be clever and he might do a takeover with Ineos, as a holding company. I don't know. It's one of those. But Tony's right. The Glazers will have a number, whatever number will be.
Hmm.
But the statement that you read out was equally correct. That an offer, there'll always be an opening offer.
Yep.
And we
Yep.
will offer you 4 billion. And if there's any interest, they'll come back. The Glazers will and say, "Look, on number 6, you match
Yep.
6, and we'll walk
And
away."
we'll do it. Yep.
Now, is there a chance that the Glazers have had enough? Is there a chance that the Glazers are fed up? Possibly.
Possibly.
That yeah,
Yeah.
I can't see any reason why they wouldn't be fed up. They are exceptionally thick skins, but there comes a time where if you can walk away with 3 billion quid in your back
You'd be
pocket,
stupid not to.
you'd be stupid not to. And it
Yeah.
may well be that is the case. There's a lot going on at the club at the minute in terms of restructure, the way that a lot of the older guard are now leaving, and fresh blood's coming in. Richard Arnold, the first CEO since David Gill, is looking at a complete
Yep.
restructure. It
Yep.
looks like he's got his handle on what he wants. It looks like he's listened to Raniak. I was on a show a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking about. Well, I was asked the question: was Raniak a success? And I just made a point that I think Raniak's main role was to restructure the club, and his second role was to run the team. But his main role was to restructure the club, and I think you're seeing that now. I think you're seeing what he's done, the people that he's spoken to, the years that he's had, and it seems to be rolling in that direction. Now,
Yep.
does that mean it's rolling because somebody else is pulling the strings behind old Richard Arnold and it isn't the Glazers or not? It's gonna. I think
Who
it's going to be
who
very
knows?
interesting times. I really
Yeah.
do.
Who knows? But I think we these things do take time as well. Obviously, it is interesting. There's a lot to it and a lot that goes on behind the scenes, which we have obviously spoken about. So if you're just joining us now, a number of you just come in, rewind and have a look at some of the things we've gone through. A few share things, the amount of investment that Ariel have done recently, which was part of, or at least Jim Ratcliffe has got some fingers in there, and he's certainly put a lot of buying lots of shares since September last year. But just to recap on that timeline, really. So Jim Ratcliffe puts in a 4 billion bid for Chelsea, 4.25 as you said, Stu. Knows it won't be accepted. Came in late. Which no shrewd businessman does. Nobody comes in late. You will be well aware of it. You don't come in late. It doesn't happen
No,
because
no,
you're
no.
stupidly throwing money at something that you have no idea. Okay. Does an interview saying that United isn't for sale. He also said a few weeks ago that United is in a bit of a mess. Now, a bit like Mourinho, he always used to say it in his interviews, I don't talk about other players from other clubs. Okay, this is exactly the same situation. You don't talk about another club you're not interested in potentially. Okay, dangling carrots in my view. His researchers, of course, would have screened the interviewer's questions before he
Yes,
did it. Okay,
absolutely.
that's another thing as well. Was he putting it out there that he wants to buy, and now a 4 billion price tag has been touted from about Jim and potentially something he might be putting in for United? Is that all coincidental? It's difficult. Really difficult, isn't it? Reese has just joined us here. Good to see you, buddy. I hope you're well, mate,
Dude,
and get your comments and questions in. For those of you still in here, really appreciate it. Obviously, a really good conversation. It's been really enjoyable having Stu.
bloody
We're not quite
flown
done
by.
yet, and it's been really quite fun, and I've appreciated it so far. Reese obviously goes on to say this is the owner that I want, and he's not lying. Actually, we've spoken in chats recently, and he was sort of him, myself, and another guy who's on this channel sometimes, a Chelsea fan, talking about Jim Ratcliffe, and obviously he came in for Chelsea a little bit late. All the things I've just gone through, and a number of us have said that it would be a good investment by him and somebody that hopefully more likely cares about the club. So we will just have to see. We're going to move on now to yeah. Come in, mate. I'm around briefly if you want me on. Please do. We'd like to hear your
Yeah, come
thoughts
in.
on. I'll try and get that link over to you. But yeah, we'd love to hear what you think about that. We'll come to that. I'll come back to that in a minute. So there have been rumours in the last few days about Frankie de Jong. Obviously, there's lots of names coming out of the hat. I'm sure you've been on Twitter and seen all of them that have come out and do the merry-go-round again. But yeah, so what Frankie de Jong is certainly one of those. Apparently available from Barcelona. Barcelona would potentially be ready to sell. I don't know what the price is going to be necessarily, but it's certainly someone that's on the lips of lots of what seemingly at the moment journalists, potential, got some sort of legs to it, played under Eric Ten Hag, knows him very well, knows that obviously we need a midfielder. He would have done his research behind the scenes, even though he's a manager of Ajax, and knows what we want. I do have some concerns about this, and I know Reese will be able to come in and talk about this as well. But I do have some concerns about this. Now, I was talking to Stu backstage. I'd absolutely love the caliber of Frankie de Jong. I think he's a wonderful player. Not necessarily the defensive midfielder that we need, but certainly somebody that can create a tempo of the game and hold the ball up and better than what we have. No doubt about that. And, of course, played under Eric Ten Hag. My worry is, I know that we're going to lose lots of players in the summer and our wage bill will come down, but we probably need about 6 or 7 players. Okay, that's the fact. All right. Now I know we're not going to get 5, 6, 7 in a window. We might get 3 or 4, but I feel that getting somebody like Frankie de Jong, his wages are going to be slightly higher than some players that maybe Ten Hag or Ralph Ragnick can scout and know to get for cheaper and less wages. So that knocks that out. And also, I feel that he would cost a significant sum, which again would be a difficulty and take our money away from other areas. What are your initial thoughts on that, Stu?
Yeah, I'm actually the same with you. He's going to cost us a lot of money, 60, 70 million euros for a start, and then wages on top. I like Frankie de Jong. I think if you understand football and are a football purist, you can see the magnificence of what he could bring to Manchester United. But he's the wrong player to be going at just for the minute, because we need a good, solid defensive midfielder first and foremost, to allow the likes of Frankie de Jong to do what he does best, and that's his passing ability. I think he makes almost. I don't like stats. Stats don't
I know you don't.
don't
That's why I
tell
always
you.
wind you up with them.
Yeah, they don't tell you whether a player is good or not. His stats are something ridiculous, like 50 passes a game. He'll attempt and he'll complete. I think he's got 91% accuracy and stuff of that nature. But I just don't buy that, because you've got to be able to do that week in, week out in the Premier League. And
You could make 91% of passes successful that are easy.
yeah,
It's the killer ones that you want
I
that
could do that.
to
I
matter
mean,
to.
I could pass to Reese 1 yard, 52 times a game. Dead
Exactly.
easy.
Yeah. Exactly.
It would be quite easy. What you need is somebody with football intelligence and a footballing brain, and that is something he does offer you. And
Yes.
he also
100%.
offers you an ability to play alongside fan favourite Donny van der Beek. And that would be an absolutely terrific midfield with a good, solid defensive midfielder, whoever that may be. And there's a load of people who were saying, well, they want certain things, certain kind of players with certain attributes. I'm not interested. I'd take Yves Bissouma tomorrow. It doesn't bother me. Somebody of that stature would be ideal for us, because you just need somebody to break up the play. And once you've got a De Jong and a Van der Beek in your side, you can deal with it a lot easier, even with a Fred in there. But he wouldn't be my go-to player right now. I would have to, if I was looking at De Jong, I would need to complement De Jong. And you need to be looking at the player that complements De Jong. That's what you need to do. And also complement Donny van der Beek. Now, I get it. I think a diamond four of De Jong, Van der Beek, Bruno at the top, and a defensive midfielder, and then two strikers, would be absolutely superb. And whether or not we go for the likes of Nunes, who we're linked with, I think he's okay. The issue I have with him is his touch. He's woeful at best, but he knows where the goal is. And so you've got to weigh things up. It does mean, though, that our attacking width will diminish, and so it will also mean that Erik ten Hag, which is what he's done in Holland, will have to be making use of our wing backs. And I think if he's going to do that, we're going to need two new wing backs to be able to play his particular system. So I think it's very interesting that De Jong is being linked with us. I've seen the hysteria about Frankie De Jong in the past. By the way, he's a bit lightweight as well. I'm afraid he needs to. He's going to need to bulk up. I keep talking about this all the time, and it gets dismissed. But you cannot underestimate the need for power in the Premier League, as well as pace. But he's a dainty player. He's got the attributes we need. But first and foremost, before you sign him, you sign a player that complements him in the midfield. And by the way, a good centre midfielder and a changing goalkeeper had sorted out our Maguire-Varane issues. I just thought I'd make that point clear. I know Reece isn't a Maguire fan. I get all of that, but it would help. Something like Bissouma and, I don't know, an Oblak, I'm just spitballing goalkeeper-wise, would really sort out our centre-halves as well. So I don't necessarily think we should look for a centre-half. But we must, before we buy De Jong, we must get the complementary player that suits his style first and foremost.
Yeah, you know what? Just before I bring you in, Reece, I want to just go a couple of things very, very quickly, so bear with me. Just to let you guys know, it's 3-0 to Spurs, and Arsenal had a player sending off in the 33rd minute. Now, they were there to cement their top four spot tonight, and Spurs are absolutely handing it to them. So fair play to Spurs. I won't always say that, but obviously good to see from a neutral perspective. Just coming to Tony's comment here, we spoke about him very briefly. You did, Stu. Bissouma for me is a workhorse. I would stay away from Rice with the figures being quoted. Absolutely spot on. Now, was it Xhaka sent off? It says here on Google, was he sent off as well? Rob Holding, I thought, was sent off in the first half.
There's not been two off, is there?
So unless someone else has been sent off as well, Reece is going to check for us, which would be absolutely crazy. But not surprising, though, isn't it? I hope you all had your bets on Xhaka to get booked. But we'll see. No, is it not the case?
No, he's fine. It's just Rob Holding.
Okay, Rob Holding in the first half. So yeah, obviously I'm going to catch up on that as soon as we're done here. Reece, thank you very much for coming on, mate. Really appreciate that. And we've had some really, really good conversations tonight. Firstly about the Youth Cup last night. Excellent win, really good to see. We were talking about Jim Ratcliffe earlier on, which I think you caught the end of. But just quickly, we'll go back to that for a moment. What are your thoughts on Jim Ratcliffe? And could this possibly have some sort of legs in it?
I think with recent rumours, I think just like a transfer news that comes in, I think parts of it you've got to take with a bit of salt. I think there's some part it's not going to be fully fledged, but the whole discussions about Ariel buying shares, like that's fact. Like he is buying, like through Ariel, they are buying up shares like really slowly within the club. and it will reduce the stock of the Glazers, of course, which is a good thing for us. But it's mostly like the ones you really want is the A-class shares. The B-class shares are significant, but the A-class shares are the ones that he will really want to buy. And I think he is mixing between both. I think he's trying to take as much control as he can. But it's going to be.
I'm not.
It's the B class.
Yeah, so I think
those
from what I understand, I think it's the B class that actually have any sort
They've got
of
voting
bearing
powers.
on how much. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But they've. I think I don't know whether you caught this, but just to recap for everyone else, since September last year, they've gone up. Ariel, as somebody that obviously Jim has some sort of holding over. They've bought almost 15% shares, over 15% shares, and now own 20% of those Class A shares, which is quite significant.
Yeah, the smart thing for him is getting both. Like the B shares obviously have like the voting power, and the Class A shares just have that significant. They have that significant grip. What the Glazers have, like they've got pretty much like all the Class A shares, which is for them like really need to remove. He is the one I want purely from a business perspective. Like it's not about a football owner or Sundance understands football. This is a man who greatly understands football, but he's also a smart business owner. Obviously, Ineos, like Ineos is his baby. Like that's his love child, as he would probably define it as. That's pretty much where his wealth comes from. And obviously, Ineos are the company that owns Nice. They have been significant with them. Like
Nantes. I thought it was Nantes. It's Nice, isn't it?
Do you know what?
Nice,
we've done a merry-go-round tonight. I originally said Marseille. Stu then said Nantes, and now you've said Nice correctly. So we got there in the end. Third time lucky. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm not sure who owns Nantes, but I'm pretty sure Marseille has a rich owner from like way out with, and not like PSG equivalent, but they do have like a very wealthy owner. But yeah, he owns Nice. That's company he bought into actually. Fun enough, and he has been significant owner for them for 3 years, I think, 3-4 years, and he's investing in the squad very slowly, but it's significant, smart investment.
He couldn't get Chelsea at the time, if you remember, didn't he? Because he tried to get Chelsea, and then he bought.
And it's clever, what he's done, because he's put the right people in charge to run the club, and he will invest like what's needed at the time. I don't think he wants to do like big bulk investments. I think he realizes that it's a smart job. Just chucking money in isn't smart, but with United, he knows he's going to have to spend money. And for me, the fact is, it's somebody who understands. He does understand the British game, because he actually has been to games. He's been to Chelsea games. He's been to United games. He's been to other significant stadiums as well. So he understands the meaning behind not just English football, but British football, and the British football as a culture.
Just to jump in there very quickly, Ray. Sorry, buddy.
No, by all means.
I know this isn't something to go by, obviously, with the Glazers owning Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
It obviously doesn't mean anything, that if they're in the sporting industry already, then potentially they know how to run a club. But going on, I'm just looking at some things on Ineos here. Obviously, they own Nantes, and they've obviously invested a lot into sailing. Obviously, Stu mentioned earlier,
Formula One as well.
Formula One, cycling, football as well with Nice, and rugby, All Blacks in the New Zealand.
Yeah, he's got stocks in there as well.
Being on what you've just said, Reese, and the fact that obviously they've got a lot of fingers in lots of other sporting events, and also the fact that he's very much aware of how United have been run. And he said, and not in his interview the other week, but he said that United are very messy at the moment. Okay,
true.
Structurally, so with that in mind, it would surely mean that he would have to come in and potentially do a better job than what's currently being done.
That's something for sure. I think the one thing he's not going to be is a Roman Abramovich. He's not going to be Roman Abramovich for me. And like, even though like there's dodgy this, dodgy that, Roman Abramovich for me is still the biggest and the greatest owner in English football history.
Agreed.
Like in terms of what he's done, like I don't think anybody comes close to Roman Abramovich. But that's because it's not just about the money that he was willing to put in, but he was very committed to what he did with Chelsea for the 20 years. Like obviously from 2003 when he came full owner, 2004, like the first big year for him. Ratcliffe is not going to be that type of like that owner where he's going to pump billions upon billions in. But what he is going to do is he's going to pump sufficient amount in year on year that is going to aid United in the way of fixing glaring holes. And I think the one thing United can do is United can survive off the revenue we produce year on year. We can do that. That's fine. We can use our revenue as a transfer budget. What we have to do is have somebody in the background like Ratcliffe, who is the owner of the club, who will use his own money to fix issues like the stadium, infrastructure, like refurbishing like Carrington, because that's not up to scratch because it's been usurped by Melwood. It's been upstaged by the City, like the City Sport Group training facility. They've got it beside the Etihad, like the Spurs training group, training ground. All of that, like Carrington was supposed to be like the leading one. Now it's completely obsolete. So just in the back of that, Ratcliffe doesn't have to spend billions like what City have done, or in that respect, or even Roman Abramovich. All he has to do is just spend the right amount on glaring issues and keep people who understand football to fix the sporting side and let them have the control. And if they need to invest like extra amount of money, if he doesn't want to use like the revenue as a transfer budget, use his own money, by all means, we're fine with that. It's the smart side, and that's why Ratcliffe for me is on, because he understands sport, he understands football, and one thing he unlike the Glazers, is Ratcliffe ain't stupid, so he is going to get issues resolved by employing the right people, and he's done that for like you don't become a multi-billionaire with chemical companies and sporting industries if you're thick as hell. He knows what he's got, and that's for me is the reflection. And hey, Josh.
Yeah, Josh in the comments here. Hi guys, how are we? We are great. We had a really good conversation tonight, and wish you could have joined us earlier. But please go back and have a look. Make sure you like and subscribe, and leave some comments down the bottom. We'll obviously go through those and try and respond to it if we can. Thank you, Reece. Really appreciate that, buddy. And then coming back to you as well. I'm sure Stu is spoken too much for himself tonight. I will come back to you in a moment, though, buddy.
That's all right, mate. Carry on.
A point that you made actually earlier that I'm going to come to Reece about with regards to De Jong. I've obviously made my thoughts clear about the wage bill, and potentially it would take out a lot of our summer budget if we went for someone like him. But Stu talked about somebody that would accommodate and help someone like De Jong if he was to come in. Now, you might laugh at me. This man we all know very, very well, and actually some of his best scores and appearances for Ajax came as a number 6, and it's something that he did very, very well, especially when he was breaking through the system, and that's Donny van der Beek. So why couldn't we have someone like him in a Ten Hag system with Bruno further up, with Frankie de Jong next to him, and have that midfield almost cemented? But your thoughts on De Jong and perhaps that as well?
I, for one, love De Jong. Like, I think I watch Barcelona now and again. I did watch his final season at Ajax in the Champions League and a few league games. And I watched him play in the game against Germany, not too long ago. Like, fantastic midfield performance.
Yeah.
He is that luxury player. It's like people who want us to go ahead and spend money on Harry Kane. Like, I get the reason, but it's pointless. My only concern with this deal is I agree on the midfield linchpin, but my glaring concern is it really going to be Van der Beek? And the reason I say that is because he is a fantastic player. I do like watching him, but he does have glaring holes. And the glaring hole for him is he has not once been able to adapt to the Premier League through partial faults. It could be favouritism, could be the fact is he's just not what he's seen in training from what he was in Holland, because it's a completely different environment. Yeah. And also the system he's been played in doesn't really fit him to a T. It doesn't fit him. It's been chopped and changed.
Just to you come back to you in a second, Ray. Sorry, buddy. Just to kind of put some two pennies in, really.
Of course.
He hasn't. I don't want to make excuses for a player. They do need to be able to come on the field and
of course,
taking the opportunity and grabbing it with both hands. But he hasn't really been given a fair crack of the whip. He's been played in various systems. not necessarily the players or the manager that's right for him. And I do, and Evan obviously agrees in the comments. Thanks for joining us, mate. Under Ten Hag, Donny van der Beek runs the show. But sorry, carry on, Ree. Sorry, mate.
I think there's a possibility for that, but what you have to look at is, I'm looking at what you said about the pivot there about Van de Beek and De Jong, because it's either going to be a double pivot or it's going to be a single, and you're going to play as a free man midfield. I look at it and I think that midfield is just a little bit too weak. It's strong technically, like from a technical perspective, it's very strong, but it's the willingness to get stuck in. The De Jong is that type of player where he is very good with the ball. He has got a pass on him. He is capable of going up and down, but he isn't a very aggressive player. To a degree, Van de Beek is a similar mold, but Van de Beek is like, I've compared him in the past to Thomas Muller. Not directly, but he likes to work around space, and it fits him. I think with United, if you're going to have De Jong, Van de Beek for me either plays as a 10 rotation or he plays as an 8, and you have another defensive midfielder there, because I just don't think unless he puts a little bit of muscle on, a little bit of strength into his game, which can be done if you coach a player really well and they go up against big bastard bulldozers, then they've got something. But I just look at him and I don't think he's strong enough to play the lone 6 role. And I think for United, I do think next year, I'm going to say it now, I do think next year United won't start at a 4-3-3. I do think we will start as a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
And I think it will, as you see players start to move on and we start to transition more, we will move into the 4-3-3 Dutch system of the 4-1-2-3. But I do think it will be the 4-2-3-1 first to get a midfield consistent, and then we transition. But for me, I think we still need that linchpin midfielder in the middle that is aggressive. Like Stu mentioned, Yves Bissouma. I've never really been convinced about Bissouma, but I've watched a fair bit more of Brighton lately, and I have been a bit more convinced. I wouldn't be against that. I don't see us signing many players from Ajax, so that's Alvarez ruled out. I think you're more recently going to get 1 or 2 players from Ajax, and it won't be him. And I don't know if we'll sign Calvin Phillips, although I think Calvin Phillips may be the smartest option.
Anthony's
the 2 I want.
Anthony, I know that you've obviously spoken about them in the group chat quite often, but would they be the 2? First of all, that you would be happy with, and second of all, that are very viable for him to get?
I think they, for me, would be perfect because it gives us. He likes to play with an inverted winger, and he likes to play with a wide playmaker. So Sanchez is going to be the wide playmaker in that sense, but from the left. And then you've got the inverted side of Anthony on the right with his left foot. Both are inverted wingers in that sense anyway, because they're both playing opposite sides, but they're the weakest foot. And Timber can play as a right back or a right-sided centre-back. So you've got the option where next season it could be Maguire and Varane, but Timber on the right-hand side, up and down,
just
somebody who
that
can do
defensive cover on the right-hand side.
Yeah, or he could play in the right centre-back, and then it's either Maguire or Varane, depends on who's playing. Those 2 for me would be the viable options, and for me the smartest options. And then on the back of that, whether it be a Phillips or a Bissouma, either or I think works. I know a lot of people want Ruben Neves. I think that's a lost cause, because he's just a similar type of player to De Jong for me, except he's very more aggressive in a tackle. I think they're both the exact same player. Good vision, good shot on them, workhorses, but I think Neves is more of the tackle. I think you only sign one. You either get De Jong as your 8 or you get Ruben Neves as your 8. You don't get both. So for me, it'd be either Bissouma or Limer's going to go to Bayern Munich, so that's another loss as well. So it's either Bissouma or Phillips, I think, is your smartest option as a 6. And then De Jong potentially is your 8. Van de Beek as your rotation for the 8 or the 10, because he's going to get chances either way under
100%.
And then you potentially got Garner in there as well. So you've got 2 6s either way. It's just about how we go. But for me, I wouldn't have a midfield of Van de Beek, De Jong behind Fernandes. No. I think it's a little bit too weak, personally.
I do agree with that. It's just something that obviously I've banged Van der Beek's drum for a long time. I'm a massive fan of his, and I know that obviously he hasn't come good quite yet.
I do feel for him though. I do like him. I do feel for him.
But I just wanted to obviously allude to the fact that he had played in the 6 role many times. Granted, a different league, and obviously a different physicality. So very difficult to see, but it is a possibility. I'm going to ask you one more question after this, but I just wanted to come to this one very quickly, Reese. Why United didn't go hard for Haaland, who cost City 51 million? My personal thoughts on that is United wouldn't have not known about that. United wouldn't have not have toyed with that. Now, 51 million for a player like that who has been injury prone this year isn't something to not go in for. Now, my thoughts are United would have been in for him, or at least had a look at it, but perhaps that's not necessarily something that would fit Ten Hag style going forward. Yeah. Would you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on this, at least?
No, I'm the same. I think he does have a good first touch on him, and for a man of his height, like I've said about Pogba a few times, like a man of his height, he's deceptively quick. He averages a goal a game his entire career, but I just look at United and I think either United aren't ready for a player like Haaland, which sounds a bit controversial, but we're not in that stage where we can just put a Haaland and then we automatically become better. We don't. If you put Harry Kane in our team, if you put Harry Kane in our team as well, Harry Kane doesn't get more than 20. It's the same as Ronaldo. Like Ronaldo's getting all these goals because he's having to do all the work. He isn't going to get the full service. You put a top player like that in our team right now and you've killed their career. I think your best option is you build a team and then over time you add that luxury.
Yeah,
we're never going to get a Haaland, but down the line, United will sign. We're not going to sign a player like Haaland, but you're going to sign a striker on those grounds. Perfect example we down the line is United sign like an Nkunku, a different type, is versatile, or United go crazy. They give a big money offer to Atletico Madrid. We sign João Felix. Like there's a very bizarre option that United could take down the road once Ten Hag's got his team in place. He may just want that striker who's like that icing on the cake. It's not going to be Haaland, and it's definitely not going to be Harry Kane.
No, 100%. And good points, well made there, mate. Absolutely spot on, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I kind of pushed this question to Stuart just to quickly say. Actually, he sends his apologies. We've all been there. Our laptop has started to do an update and restarted, and it's going to take 30 minutes, so he ain't going to be back tonight. But I just want to say thanks, Stu, for coming on. Absolutely brilliant stuff, and really, really good to have a chat with you. My question I pushed to him earlier. Siri's trying to listen to me now. Sorry, fucking hell. I said to him that my concern about getting De Jong high wages. I know we're losing a load of wages, but more wages than what you'd be looking at elsewhere, and obviously probably command a big fee as well. And my worry is, whilst we wouldn't get 6 players this summer, we'd probably want to look at 3 or 4. And I feel that if you buy a player like De Jong, that really cuts your budget, and then you might only get maybe one other. Is that a concern for you?
I think it has its impact, but I think we all know that United are always going to give high wages. I think what United need to do is United need to cap. I think United realistically need to start capping now, like which players earn what, and tier it that way, and then they negotiate contracts properly with like, okay, you've done this relative service, now we're just going to give you like 25% increase or 50%. We don't want like going up like from like 100 grand to like 250 in like 1 year. It has to be managed properly. I've got no problem if he gets like more than 250k, because it's the same as Sancho. I don't have that problem. I think for United, what they have to do is, when it comes into wages or fees, is they actually dominate the transfer window. They dominate proceedings, and if a player wants a specific amount, don't completely sell short to them, but there's always ways around a contract negotiation where they can say, okay, we're not going to offer you this amount now, but over a certain period of time, we are
hit
going to
these
raise it.
milestones, and here you go, sort of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. It can be done, but I get your point. But I think I keep seeing bollocks in social media about it's going to be like 65 million. It's going to be like 200, 250K a week, all this stuff. But then what we're looking at is two defenders. It's either one defender, two midfielders, or two defenders, two midfielders, and a forward. Or I'm not bothered what we get, just as long as we actually build the core foundations. I want us to build from the back first. I want the defense, then the defense midfield role fixed first. Then we move forward.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think, we've got the players up front, regardless of the availability or the current form of players. We have a very good plethora of attacking players, and I think you're right.
Agree.
I think we need to sort out our defence first, whether that's going to be a centre back, certainly a left back, certainly a right back, and we'll just have to wait and see until the summer.
I think we need versatile options.
Yes, absolutely. Tony makes a good point here. He agrees with Reece. Obviously, you have to look at the whole deal for Haaland, also factor in where he wanted to go. Yeah. Like Reece said, the stage we are at United wouldn't be an attractive proposition for him. Exactly. And listen, it's always lovely to dream and to get these players in, but actually I don't think Haaland would suit a Ten Hag system, if I'm brutally honest. And that's not me trying to save face at all or swallow pride. That's just me being realistic. Of course, you'd want a player for 51 million, in the name of Haaland, but there's lots of factors you have to take into consideration. I don't think he's going to be right for the system. I think United would have looked at him for that price, but didn't go for him. And Eric Ten Hag would have already relayed what he wants, or at least to try and look for. And maybe that wasn't.
There was a meeting today. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty from what I was seeing, from United accounts and stuff. Is there was a meeting today between Ten Hag, Van der Gag's assistant, and United representatives who were in Amsterdam.
He was signed today,
they were discussing
wasn't he?
ins and outs.
Van der Gag, he's in now, isn't he? It's pretty much done, other than contract signed, isn't it?
Yeah, they had meetings today about ins and outs. Like, he was invited to the conversations, so you just know that United are going to be looking at targets now. But we've already seen clubs already in the league and in Europe already acting. United need to act quickly. If he has players in mind for when he comes in, they should be making these offers now rather than doing what they always do and sleep. They need to be very proactive this year.
Saying that, actually, I've seen in a few places. I've been quite impressed with John Murtough since he's come in. This isn't a guy that's just come in last season. This is a guy that's actually done a lot with the youth over the years, and you look at how much that's improved. Yeah, got a youth cup last night, and he's also done a lot with the women's side. And this is a man that does know his job very well, but I think he's making some really very good moves at the moment. He got rid of Jim Lawler. He got rid of the finance director recently, who's moved on, and getting someone else in, trying to reshuffle the structure, and I think he's making some good things. And I did read, again, take it with a pinch of salt, but he's been working on this De Jong deal for a couple of months now and trying to do it early. So it might have some legs. We'll have to see over the next, obviously, few weeks and months. But perhaps that could be someone that we do get in. So we'll have to wait and see. And coming back to Tony here, just very quickly, and I'm going to wrap up shortly. Sorry to obviously only have you on for 20 minutes, Reece, but obviously we're
20 minutes is still good.
20 minutes of you is better than none at all, let me tell you. So and obviously with Stu dropping out, it saved my arse too. So thank you very much. The fullbacks need sorting this summer, at least one on each side. I absolutely agree with you, Tony, and we did mention that earlier.
I second
certainly
that.
someone to, exactly. I think that's certainly one that we're going to look at. Really good conversation tonight. As I said, a lot of you obviously coming in, and a few of you watching now still, and loads of you on Twitter. Come over to youtube.com/The Weekly Armchair. This show has been very good, and lots of packed analytical numbers, some that it might be difficult to obviously get on board with, but certainly looks at obviously Jim Ratcliffe and that into a lot greater detail. But anyway, for those of you who have joined in, brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for getting your comments in. Make sure you like and subscribing, and yeah, we'll see you again very soon. Obviously, the season's coming to a close now, but we'll be doing some stuff over the summer and then certainly from the new season onwards. But as I said, thanks very much, Reese, for joining. I really appreciate that, buddy.
You're welcome.
And we will see you next time.